Hello, everybody. Welcome to 909, or welcome back if you're a lovely viewer. Today, me and Bryar from Bryers Music Showcase will be reviewing the Mamas and Papas' third studio album from 1967. Yes, it's their first album, not from 66. That is none other than the I do have the record, but I couldn't find it for the life of me, so just gonna show the picture of the album cover on my phone. But yeah, anything you like to add? Like history, like you usually do. Anything you like to say?
Yeah, of course. So yeah, like you said, this was their first album in 1967. 1967. So came out in February. Couldn't find the exact date, but somewhere in February. Again, same producer, Lou Adler's producing it again. Um, there wasn't a whole lot of info around this time. There was one big notable thing. Really because as you as we've already established, the title of the album is called Deliver. And really, the reason why it's called Deliver is because around this time, uh, Cass Elliot was pregnant, and that was kind of like an in joke, like the mamas and papas deliver, and they're kind of a double meaning. They're delivering songs, but also Cass was going to deliver a baby, so a little in joke there, but it's kind of fitting. Uh, there's big difference between this album and the previous one. Is that this one definitely has a lot more covers, not as many originals here. But regardless, this still did pretty well for them. Peaked at number 2 on the charts and remained there for about 55. Well, it remained on the charts for about 55 weeks. So definitely wasn't a flop or anything. But we'll see if this album holds up to the other two, at least for me.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing about this album is that you're right. It's just so many covers. Uh, I'm just gonna make it clear right away. This is my least favorite of the four albums that they made in the '60s. I mean, all four of these albums to me are great. They'll have at least half the album to me has amazing songs on it, which some bands would kill to have at least half an album. That would be great for them. So for all their '60s albums to have at least half an album's worth of amazing songs, that should tell you how great they were. But yeah, I will say it is a pain that they went from last album to like a lot of covers on this album. It just to me it's a big step down in their direction. Uh, but you could tell right away the first song on the album, which is a cover. The first two albums start off with originals, No Solid and Nail and Monday Monday. But what do you think about Dedicated to the One I Love?
Yeah. So, like you said, this is starting right off the bat with the cover, and yeah, it's a kind of an odd choice to start the album because it has a very slow beginning. It doesn't really get going till a little bit later. Then it becomes like a more mid-tempo song. Definitely has a very saloon quality to it, given the piano sounds has that piano sound to it. Something you hear like in the Western saloon. But other than that, the harmonies are still pretty good, and this went to number 2 on the charts. Again, it's a good song, but maybe this shouldn't have been the opening to the album. But that's just me. But on its own, it's still a pretty good song. I can still quite enjoy it.
Yeah, I think this song's amazing. Like I said, well, compared to the last two openers, Monday Monday and No Salt on Her Tail, this album opener is a big step down in my opinion. But that doesn't take it away from it. It is a very
Hmm.
good opener. I mean, the
Right.
fact that this would be my least favorite opener on a Mamas and Papas album in the '60s just tells how great they are at opening their albums. Well, I would say they're like the Birds, where all their albums opened up strong, but there is their fifth album. Well, I haven't listened to it in a long time. Who knows? Maybe that might have changed.
Hmm.
But I feel like, well, I already mentioned it to Breyer. Every album has sort of a different theme to them. Not like concept, but like every album that they made in the '60s sound different. The first album sort of sounds like a '60s pop record. of its time, but it sounds amazing. Their second album's more broad, more orchestrated. Uh, it's a lot more broader than the other, more darker too. This album, I consider it to be their Smiley Smile. It's a lot less broad, not as much orchestration. There is one song on the album that is, but it was recorded for the last album, and I'll go more to talk about it. But this album's a lot more laid back than the other two albums. It takes a more what I call lo-fi, more Smiley Smile approach, and this song just
Mm.
tells right away, like Monday, Monday, and No Salt on the Tails, like more upbeat, but like it's a lot more orchestrated. It's a lot more. It's more, but this song's more just sort of like a laid back opener. And I do agree there is one song that I felt like would have been a better opener. I think you might know what it is, what I'm referring to. But yeah, this is a good opener.
Yeah.
Next song on the album is
Mhm.
okay. Sorry.
No, sorry. You go ahead.
Uh,
I got
Next song on the album is yet another cover, "My Girl."
all right. My Girl, of course, who does not know the song My Girl, of course, famously from the Temptations. So yeah, this one you have Denny on the lead vocals, and Cass is also here providing some backing as well. Um, I think I don't know. I don't know. If I remember correctly, I feel like based on what you've said before, I get the feeling you're not too crazy for this cover. Um, but for me, I quite liked it. I think they do a pretty good version of it. I mean, I'm a fan of the song in general, so of course, I'm gonna really enjoy it anyway. And again, like I said, I think Denny really does a really good job on the lead vocals here. He sounds really good, and even the backing from Cass is also a very nice touch. Musically, it's pretty nice. It definitely still has that feel of the original, but still has their mom and papa like sound to it as well. Of course, nothing can truly top the original. Like the original is perfect, but again, they do a pretty decent job for this song. So yeah, I quite like this one.
I I feel like I was a little harsh when I mentioned it to Breyer when I first talked about it. It's not lousy, but it definitely is one of my least favorite covers that they did. I mean, they made some amazing covers in their first two albums. I Call Your Name, Do You Want to Dance,
Hmm.
You Baby, Dancing in the
Right.
Street. So after going off of those covers, this one just comes off as weak. Uh, on its own, it's a good cover, but if I'm gonna compare it to other covers that they made in previous albums and even covers that they would do in future out the future album that they would make, even the covers, even some of the covers they do on this album is better than this one. This is probably my least favorite of their range of covers that they did.
Oh, that's fair.
Next song on the album is Creek Alley, which, fun fact, is a part of a trilogy of songs. The first song being California Dreaming, a song about reaching for fame. The middle of which is this song, which is about having fame in the middle of it and talking about how it end up happening. And the third one is Mansions, which we'll go into that when we talk about the next album that they make.
Hmm. Yeah. So, yeah, to me, I think this would have been a more fitting opening song. To be honest, this was written by John and Michelle, and yeah, but basically what you said. I mean, this song is basically their origin story. Like it pretty much talks about, where they were, how they met, rising to fame, and how that's starting to affect them a little bit. Um, just a lot of references, a lot of in references that was pretty known for their history. They even name drop a bunch of people, like you hear McGuinn, you get McGuire also being referenced as well, and all these places that they went to while they were trying to, uh, you know, get a record deal and stuff like that. Pretty, it's a pretty cool song. It's very nice, has a good, very folky, but it still has a very poppy sound to it, and just has this very cool cadence and melody that's definitely very catchy. There's another flute solo in here, which is very nice. Again, call back to California Dreaming almost. Yeah, but this one in the song did pretty well as well. It went to number 5 here in the charts. But yeah, this is a really good song, and this is like one of their classic songs, and deservedly so. I think this is definitely one of the big standouts here.
I agree. This song's amazing. I do like the name drops, like you mentioned before, McGuinn and McGuire, just the getting
Mhm.
high.
Yes. And
We
then there's
just
that
got
one
done going
line.
through the verse. We just got done
Yeah, there.
going through the birth biography, so hearing
Mhm.
McGuinn's name is just interesting. And then McGuire, I introduced Bryers to some songs by Barry McGuire, of course,
Mhm.
Evil Destruction, the original California Dreaming, which is nowhere near as good as the one that the Mamas and Papas would end up making. But I played a few songs about to him. Of course, Zoe and Sebastian from the Love and Spoonful. Can't forget about them.
Mhm.
They mentioned that they were in a band called the Mugwumps, which that was a band. They released one and only one. They made one and only one album in '65, and definitely an interesting origin song. I wish a lot more bands did that, like made an origin song of how they
Mhm.
formed and name dropping people that they were with, musicians. It would have been cool if there was more people like that who
Yeah.
made that. And I agree that the song should have been the opening track. It's a lot more uplifting.
Mhm.
Next on the album, "Sing for Your Supper," another cover.
Yep, another cover. This was doing my research. This was part of a Broadway musical from the 1930s. I'm not going to say it because there's one word that I can't pronounce, but it's there. But yeah, this one's a pretty nice song as well. I mean, I didn't write a whole lot about it, but quite enjoyed this as well. Again, I'm some you can I guess you can describe me as a theater person, so of course I'm always gonna like some of those like theatrical type of stuff. So you have Cass on lead vocals, and she sounds really great on the track. There's some very nice piano throughout this one as well. Just a very nice melody once again. But yeah, this was a very good one for me. I really enjoyed this one.
Yeah, I like this song too. It's definitely every album has at least one. I already mentioned it before, but every album has to have that signature Mama Cass song. Of course, the
Mm,
first album had, of course, "I Call Your Name." Second album had "Words of Love," and this album has "Sing for Your Supper." And it definitely continues that train of amazing Mama Cass songs greatly, and definitely a really good song. I don't know if it's in my top five or not, but it's definitely up there.
mm.
Next song on the album is yet another cover. That will be "Twist and Shout."
All right, Twist and Shouts. Of course, many people should know that one. Of course, originally from the Top Notes, but of course made even more famous with the Beatles' cover. And yeah, this one is a much slower version of it. They definitely slow it down quite a bit. Not quite as rocking as like the Beatles. Even the original, I think, rocks a bit more than this one. But you have Denny. He's doing lead vocals, and he's doing fine. He sounds nice here. There's a really good organ solo. Very enjoyed that part. Um, but overall, it's a fine cover. It's not bad, but yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to because you hear their version, you hear the Beatles version, and you're like, okay, I still prefer the Beatles version. But it's still fine. It's not horrible, but I think this is probably my least favorite cover on this album personally. But again, it's not horrible, but it's okay.
Yeah, it's my second least favorite cover on the album, and it's my second least favorite cover in general by them. Yet again, it's just I don't know. It's just like all the problems I had with My Girl sort of come on this track too. I will give them credit for putting a different twist on it. This was sort of them trying to do what they did on their first album with "Do You Want to Dance." They took an upbeat, fast song and they made it slow. They sort of tried doing it with this one, but it didn't work nearly as good as they did on that one. But it's not a bad cover. I said it's decent, but yeah, they're yeah, it's good. It's not great though.
Hmm.
Next song on the album, though, ends off side one. Free Advice.
Okay, so now we're back to an original song. This was another one written by John and Michelle. Again, another one I didn't have a whole lot to say about it. That's really the big thing about this album. I mean, a lot of these songs, they're good, but there's really nothing a whole lot to talk about. Just a few notes. I mean, I thought it was still pretty nice. I still really enjoyed it. This was kind of, again, it's kind of going more middle of the road here, comparing all the songs here. There was a couple standouts. I did like some saxophone. There was some flute as well, so I kind of like those parts to it. I think that added something memorable to the song. But other than that, it's just a very, very, very good, but pretty average kind of pop rock sort of song. So it was fine.
I thought it was really good. I like the not almost the nod backs to their debut album with Straight Shooter with the "If you know what I mean, if you know what I mean." I like this sounds like a part two to Straight Shooter almost. Like it's
Mhm.
very similar. Like there are parts of it that remind me of that. This is a really good song. It grew on me. I used to not like it at all, but it's definitely a grower. It's one of those songs that like I used to hate, but now I love. I don't know. I will say it is very. I don't know. It's a put off that their last album had four originals and two covers, but this album has the first side of the last record, and the first side on this record has four covers and two originals. So I don't know. To me, that's just a big turn off when like the majority of your first side is not the band showing what they're
Mm,
capable of. Uh,
right.
I do believe the rest of the album is originals, if I
I
am correct.
believe so. Yeah, I think the
I
rest are
don't
original.
I don't get why the first side has to be like they have to put all the covers on the first side of the record because that just shows that maybe John Phillips isn't as confident as he was on the previous two albums that he has to rely on the first side having to be the cover side and then
Mm,
the second side being the original side. To me, that shows uncertainty and
mhm,
unconfidence in your writing abilities to be like, oh, maybe put my most of my originals on the second side of the record because on
mm,
the first album and especially the second album, that's the album. Those two albums show that he was really confident. Like, oh, put most of my originals on the front end of the album, and then have like, well, on the first album, and the second half of the record have a lot of the covers on the second half, and then the second album, he has like 10 originals, but this album, it's like, oh, put the covers on the first half of the record. I'm just like,
mm,
no, like that shows weakness almost
mm.
to me though.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if you agree with me with that.
No,
Like,
I could totally see that. Yeah, I don't know, maybe I don't know, it could be a combination of that. Maybe the studio, maybe the record company was kind of pushing him to put more covers because maybe at that point maybe they maybe the singles weren't selling as well as the previous ones, so maybe they thought, hey, maybe you should do some covers to get people's attention back. So it might be a combination. Excuse me, might be a combination of those two, but yeah, I can definitely see that being a factor.
well, one thing is also certain is that he didn't have enough. Maybe he was hitting writer's block because
Yeah, that
this
could be
leads
another one
us to the
too.
next track. This leads us to the next track on the album. Look through my window, which evidently enough, was actually recorded for their last album,
Mm,
their previous album, which was, of course, the Mamas and the Papas. And they thought it wasn't good enough for that album, but all of a sudden it's good enough for this album. So maybe also he just didn't have enough things to write about, and maybe
mm,
it's like 11 songs. He's like, oh crud, like what are we supposed to do? We can't, we aren't hitting our 12 song mark, and I guess one of them was like, "Hey, let's put look through my window on there." But what do you think about it though?
yeah, so yeah, that's good. I actually missed that part. Like the part where you said this was actually supposed to be on the last album. I actually missed that part doing my research, but that, now that I hear it, then yeah, that makes total sense how it sounds because it definitely has a different sound than the rest. A lot more strings on here. I think this one has the most strings on this entire album. But yeah, it still has really, this was another standout song. Like, it has a great melody to it. I mean, the harmonies are like top notch here. And this could probably bring up to the point you were talking about before, because this song actually was definitely, other singles. This one shot a lot lower than the previous one. This song only got to 24. So again, that could again leads to record companies meddling, putting more covers on it. And again, like you said, the whole writer's block could be a factor as well. The confidence, if this song didn't do as well, then maybe John was starting to think like, okay, something's not right here. But yeah, this was a really good song. Regardless, it's another big standout for me. So yeah, really good. You're muted.
I'm sorry. Yeah, this is another amazing track on the album. Well, this is another amazing original on the album. I mean, besides besides well, there's only two week summer week covers on the album, but I feel like the best songs on the album so far are the originals, like Creek Alley and
Hmm.
Free Advice and Look Through My Window. Those three songs, I mean, oh man, this is just an amazing album. Side opener. I mean, this is probably because my favorite album by them is the second album, and this is their most second album sounding song, probably because it was recorded for the album.
Hmm.
Uh, but yeah, it's a good song. It's like it's so emotional. You just feel the emotions coming into this. Uh, but yeah, the professor. Yep, I am the
Yeah.
professor. I am Neil Peart. Yep, Neil Peart from Rush is reviewing this album.
Yeah.
Uh, Next song on the album, Boys and Girls Together.
All right, boys and girls together. All right. Let me see where I put it. Okay. This one I thought the song was okay. This one, it's mainly the girls who are Michelle and Cass on doing a lot of the lead on this track. There's some nice guitar work. Um, for the most part, it's pretty kind of stays the same. But then the horns come in out of nowhere, and it's like, whoa, where'd that come from? It definitely has a very almost Spanish quality to it. I don't know, maybe it's trying to harken back to Spanish Harlem. Maybe I don't know. But yeah, that was definitely caught my attention again. But again, besides that, there wasn't anything else that really stood out to me. This was kind of another song that was kind of more middle of the road, kind of teetering towards the bottom comparatively. But again, it's not a bad song, but yeah, definitely not. I didn't really see much.
Um, yeah, this whole set, but besides the first track on the side, this whole side was a big grower on me. Uh, when I
Hmm.
first listened to well, to be honest, when I first heard this album, I thought it was really bad. I actually really didn't like the album. Especially after listening to the first two and then the fourth album, I'm like, this is definitely to me still kind of the black sheep of the four albums that they're released in the '60s.
Mm,
Probably because of well, the amount of covers they were doing. I mean, they have a lot of covers on the first album, but that's the first album, so you always got to give an
right.
artist a break for doing a lot of covers on the first album. But by now, it's like, come on, But when I first heard Boys and Girls and the rest of the album, I'm just like, really, this is really what they got after their previous album. Uh,
Mm,
of course, now this album has grown on me strongly. This has become one of my favorites actually on the album
okay.
because I and Mama Cat work so well together, and this is like a big good example of that. And
Hmm.
I can see why it's for you middle of the road. I mean, I used to flat out just not like the song, so this is definitely an album you gotta let grow on you. This is
Hmm.
probably the most this and their second album a little bit has to let grow on you. The first album I will say is the only album that I would say you get right away, but these second, third, and fourth albums you gotta let grow on you, especially this album. This most you gotta let grow on you. Gotta get. But yeah, Boys and Girls Together. It's a really good song. I like the horn playing. This is definitely especially after the last track. It's such a mellow song after that, and it's really good. I actually really like it.
Hmm.
Uh,
Okay.
you should listen to their first album. It's amazing album. I mean, me and Breyer agree on it being a 10 out of 10
Mm-hmm.
album. So,
Yep.
oh yeah,
Right.
next song on the album is String Man.
String Man. All right. Okay, so okay, back to another original. This one, another one written by John and Michelle. And I believe it's Michelle who's mostly on the lead at this time, which is kind of a nice switch up. It's always hard. It's always hard hearing Michelle sometimes. But yeah, this was another pretty good song here. This one barely missed the top 5 for me. But yeah, I really enjoyed this one. Really like the switch up from the verses to the chorus. I really like how how it switches between those two. Just sounds really good. But yeah, this was a very, very solid song. I really enjoyed this one.
Oh, me too. This is in my top 5. I got to think where in my top 5, but this is definitely in my top 5.
Mm-hmm.
It's I love people consider it a throwaway song, believe it or not.
Oh wow, that's
People are
interesting.
like, "Oh, this is a throwaway song," and I'm like, "Really? This is actually one of my favorites by them." Well, not
Yeah.
in general, because there's a bunch on the first and second album that are in my top 10, but still, this is an amazing song. I love the harmonies, with the string man,
Mm-hmm.
string man. Obviously, I couldn't do it as good as they can, especially
Yeah.
since it's me doing it. But you get the idea. It's just the added vocals. Like when you actually stop and actually listen to it, obviously this isn't as easy to get into as California Dreaming and all that. But it's one of those songs where you got to listen to it and really pay attention. It's one of those songs where you don't think it's that special and it's not that intriguing, but when you actually listen to it and you hear the nuances in their vocals and it's just a lot better than you really think it is to some people. Some people just be like, "Oh, it's just that throwaway Michelle song," but it's a lot more than that. In my opinion, that is. Next song on the album, which is their only instrumental, one of two instrumentals, which is interesting enough, two instrumentals on a vocal band, but that is Frustration.
All right. Well, I people have known me enough. They know I'm never been a huge fan of instrumentals, especially if it's a band that are very much a vocal band, and this is no exception. Yeah, I didn't really care for this track. It was just like why? I mean, it probably goes back to what we were talking about before. Like I know that one of the theories we had was maybe John didn't have that much material, and this is probably one of that evidence. One of that evidence kind of shows why that theory. To me, it just felt like it was kind of more filler. Like again, probably didn't have enough tracks, so they needed something to fill the space. So they just kind of made this, which is it sounds fine. Like musically, it's fine. There's some nice stuff going on, but again, it's just kind of like I'm never gonna listen to this on its own. It's just kind of just there. But yeah, this was kind of this definitely one of the lower points on the album, I think. So, yep, didn't care for it.
I will say this. I do like this instrumental, but I will say this. It's not the Mamas and the Papas. It's just
Mm-hmm.
Construction Crew. It should have
Yes.
just it should have on the back of the album, it should have said the Wrecking Crew because
Mm-hmm.
it's not a Mamas and Papas song. This is a Wrecking Crew track because they don't play any of their instruments on the albums and
Not really.
calling this a
I mean,
Mamas and Papas
at
track,
most you have John on the guitar, but that's
yeah,
probably
but
about it.
but to me, it's an insult to the construction crew, not the wrecking crew that
Mm-hmm.
you would call this a Mamas and Papas track with all their hard work that went into this. I will say this just barely wasn't on my top 5. The musicianship is really impressive and all that, but it is very upsetting that they would call this a Mamas and Papas track, even though it is
Mm.
not a Mamas and Papas track. This is a wrecking crew track. Yes. Just like the Beach Boys track Pet Sounds and Let's Go Away for a While.
I will
Those
say
are
I prefer Let's Go Away for a while than this track. Like that's probably the one of
Oh,
the
I,
exceptions, I would say. Yeah,
oh yeah, I agree with you, and YYZ of
Yeah,
course.
YYZ as well. That's another exception.
Livia Stranchiato.
Yeah, that too.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Um, of course, if you didn't like it, I'm not going to be like, okay, that's it.
Right.
Yeah,
I
uh,
will say I do prefer Olivia Strangiato.
I prefer YYZ, but uh,
That's good. Yeah.
did you ever want to cry? What do you think of that one?
All right. Another pretty nice song. Another song that was kind of shy away from the top five. Another Cass Elliot led vocal track. There's actually I don't know. I put a question mark beside it because I couldn't tell, but it sounded like there was a banjo on the track. I could be wrong there, but it sounded like it. But I think I like that. I think I kind of like how it sounded in the track. Just a really nice. I just really enjoyed the feel of it. Just has a very nice melody, good atmosphere, good vibe. But yeah, this was another pretty solid song. So very good, very nice.
This just barely got into my top five. When I
Mm,
first heard it, I thought it was just all right, but it's definitely a good way to end the album out. It's a really good song. Very underrated. Very underrated
mm,
Mama Cass performance. Of course, I lied. This isn't the last song on the album. It is John's Music Box. I mean, I'm not. I don't have anything to say. Whatever you say is just going to be what I'm thinking.
right. Again, it's more again another one that's straight up filler. I think it's just it's a 1 minute track. It's I mean it's John's music box. It's basically sounds like a music box, and that's pretty much it. And definitely comparatively to the other songs, definitely recorded the worst. Definitely has a more lo-fi quality to it. It's just kind of like, it's just kind of a weak way to end the album. I mean, this is pretty much on par with some of the joke stuff that the Birds were doing, in my opinion. So yeah, kind of a not really a good way to close out the album.
It's up there with the "Please, Mr. Gravedigger" as well by David
Mm,
Bowie. Because I
right.
don't know. Well, here's a song that I do want us to talk about. It is "Glad to Be Unhappy."
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of that song? It's their only non-album single.
Mm. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't know. I didn't ever heard the song before. But yeah, so my quick thoughts on this one. Yeah, I think this is a very good song. Kind of surprised it wasn't on any album. You have Cass on the lead vocals, and again, sounds really good. Um, it's pretty short and sweet. It's not too long. It's not even 2 minutes. If I remember correctly, it's not that long. But it's just a really good, solid pop rock song. Has some good guitar, has a nice little guitar lick. Every so often you hear it. It's a song about basically about unrequited love. Um, I mean, the title itself kind of shows it. Glad to be unhappy. Like what a title what a title that brings. Like you're glad to be unhappy. Like that definitely piques your interest. But yeah, I think this should have replaced the instrumental track, honestly, or John's music box. Either of the two.
John's Music Box.
Yeah, yeah,
I'll,
yeah. It's
right.
really good.
Yeah. Before we give our top five and all that, here's my way of fixing this album to make it a lot better. First off, all the cover songs not on the first side. That was a horrible idea. That was just to me, like I said, that shows already went through my rant. Not that I'm making a completely different track listing. Get rid of John's Music Box. That is what you just said, straight up filler. That is
Hmm.
don't know why that has to exist. Start off the album with Creek Alley. Fix that. That's the first problem on the album is starting off with the cover. Then follow it up with Dedicated to the One I Love. Then I'd say after that song, then you could put Sing for Your Supper, an upbeat song about singing for their supper. The
Hmm.
one cover. Then I could say you have a shortened version of Frustration, the instrumental, so that it's not long, but it's still a little fillery, but it's a lot shorter and it's a lot more digestible. Then you could have Twist and Shout be the fifth song, like it was on the album, and then end off the first side with Free Advice. Boom. Second side, open up with Look Through My Window. It actually opens up the second side perfectly. Then you could have My Girl have the then follow up be like a slower song. Then Boys and Girls and String Man. Then I'd say after that, then you could have Did You Ever Want to Cry? Then end the album off with Glad to Be Unhappy, and that's a lot better. You have separate the two covers on each side, not just four covers on one side and then the the covers on. I mean, all the originals on the second side. It makes things more balanced. I get rid of John's Music Box because that does not have to exist. That should have been not even a B side. That would have been an insult to people who bought this whatever respective single that it would have been on. It would have been an insult to them. It would have been like, hey, here's our A side, but screw you on the B side. That would have been like that. Just
Yeah.
delete the master. Like, oh no, Mama Cass's cat accidentally stepped on the destroy John's Music Box button. Oh no, that song doesn't exist. What should we do now? Oh, we had this single that we didn't put on an album yet. Let's put that on there. Oh, four covers on the first side. Nah, let's separate that a little, and bam, you got My Deliver. And I'm gonna make a YouTube playlist of this. I might think things over, try to perfect it, but sorry for all the ranting because this album would have been a lot. This album had potential of being a really great follow up to their second album, but evidently enough, it's my least favorite of their 4 60s albums.
Yeah.
But 5 favorite songs, a dishonorable song because there is one on this album, and well, if you want to have your honorable mention, the one that barely missed off the top 5, you can, and your album rating if you want.
All right. Okay, so number 5, I have Look Through My Window. Number 4, Sing for Your Supper. Number 3, Dedicated to the One I Love, even though I complained about how having it be the opening track, I still think it's a really good song. Number 2, My Girl. And then number 1 is going to be Creek Alley. I will say one honorable mention in that song that just barely missed. I didn't know if we were supposed to include Glad to Be Unhappy into the actual ranking, but if it was, that would have been number 6. But if we just ignore it for a little bit, then String Man would have been number 6. Dishonorable track, yeah, John's Music Box, yeah, just not needed at all. And then in terms of an album rating, I'll give it a 7.75 out of 10. Like you said, I think this is a big step down from the first 2. Again, just a lot of songs that aren't as strong as previous ones. Again, a lot more filler stuff. But yeah, it's not a bad album, but definitely as a whole, not as strong.
But like well, after reviewing this, you have to agree at least the 6 songs that like at least half the album.
Oh yeah, at least,
of course. I will give them credit. At least half the album's amazing. Here's my top 5. My number 5 it's going to be Free Advice. My number 4 is going to be String Man. Actually, no, Boys and Girls Together. Number 3 is String Man. Number 2 is going to be Look Through My Window. And my number 1 is Creek Alley as well. It was a toss-up between those 2. But if we were including Glad to Be Unhappy in the ranking, it would be my favorite song on the album. Because it's short, it's sweet. Mama Cass's vocals are amazing. If it was my number 1, everything would have went down. But the song that just barely didn't make my top 5 is Dedicated to the One I Love. Like I said, it's great, but it's not Monday. It's not, it's not those 2 songs. It's not. I will give this album. I mean, the previous 2 albums were a 10 out of 10, but I am a very generous scorer. I will give this album a 9 out of 10. That is the lowest. That's the lowest score I give. I give Mamas and Papas 60s album. So It only goes up from it only well the next album it only goes up from here, thankfully, because
Okay. Yeah.
it is. I will have to warn you. It is their most experimental album.
Okay.
It's like it's a lot different than these three albums, especially the first two albums.
Noted.
It's
Noted.
my second favorite album of theirs, but just keep that in mind.
Okay.
Well, thank you guys for watching. Me and Brian are going to be recording a reaction video to our first ever video with Garrett from Santa Lab Studios. That is the Who ranking. So I'm very excited. Yeah. So thank you guys for watching this video, and I'll see you